You have probably watched two people taste the same food, like black coffee, dark chocolate, grapefruit, or certain leafy greens, and react very differently. A common assumption is that one person is exaggerating, or that bitterness is simply a matter of getting used to adult flavors. That assumption can be partly true, but it misses something more basic. People do not all detect bitterness in the same way. Why can the same food taste mildly pleasant to one person and sharply bitter to another? What is happening in the taste buds and brain? And why would humans evolve to be sensitive to bitterness at all? A clear explanation comes from biology, genetics, and how the body manages risk. The first misconception is that taste is purely learned. Learning matters, but the raw signal begins with receptors on the tongue and in the mouth. Bitterness is detected by a family of receptors called bitter taste receptors. They sit on taste cells and respond to many different bitter molecules. When activated, they trigger a signal that the brain interprets as bitter. The important point is that these receptors vary between people. Small genetic differences can change how strongly a receptor responds, or whether it responds at all to certain compounds. One well-known example involves compounds like PTC and Pro-P, which are not common foods, but are used in taste research. Some people barely taste them, while others find them intensely bitter. This variation tracks with differences in specific bitter receptor genes. The same principle applies, in a less extreme way, to real foods. Many vegetables contain bitter-tasting chemicals, including compounds that plants use as defenses against insects and animals. If a person's receptors respond strongly to those compounds, the vegetable may taste more bitter. Bitterness also interacts with smell and other tastes. What people describe as bitterness in coffee, for example, is not only bitter receptor activity. It also includes aroma compounds perceived through the nose and the balance of sourness and sweetness. If someone is less sensitive to bitterness, but more sensitive to acidity, they may describe the same coffee as sharp rather than bitter. So taste differences come from both receptor biology and the brain's integration of signals. This sensitivity exists for a reason. In nature, many toxic substances are bitter. Bitterness is not a perfect indicator of danger, but it is a useful warning system. A strong, bitter response can discourage swallowing unknown plants or spoiled foods. From an evolutionary perspective, being cautious about bitterness can reduce poisoning risk. At the same time, not all bitter substances are harmful, and many beneficial foods are bitter. That creates a trade-off. Human populations can maintain variation because different environments and diets may reward different levels of sensitivity. There are also age-related patterns. Children tend to be more sensitive to bitterness, which fits the idea of protection during a stage when exploration is high and body size is small. As people age, bitterness sensitivity can decrease, and experience can change perception. Repeated exposure can also reduce the brain's negative response, even if the receptors still detect bitterness. This is why some people come to enjoy bitter foods over time, not because the bitterness disappears, but because the overall meaning and balance changes. Exceptions exist too. Illness, medications, smoking, and hormonal changes can alter taste perception. Some conditions reduce taste sensitivity overall. Others create metallic or bitter sensations. So genetics sets a baseline, but the moment-to-moment experience can shift. The main idea is that bitterness is a biological signal shaped by receptors that differ between people, and by a brain that blends taste with smell and context. This matters in everyday life because it explains why food preferences can be genuine sensory differences, not simply stubbornness. It also helps when cooking for others, since bitterness can be managed with salt, fat, heat, or sweetness depending on the food. If there are other everyday senses that vary between people, you can suggest them as future topics. And if you want more explanations like this over time, subscribing is welcome. Thanks for watching.